Taking care of your UTV or ATV battery means you can reduce the chances of failure and extend the life while you're out riding. I'm here to give you a few tips on caring for your battery, and if you have a failure, what you need to do to get your machine back on the trail. First, you need to make sure that you take care of your battery when you're not riding. Batteries will discharge over time, especially if they're left out in the barn, shed, or wherever you store your machine. The best way to keep your battery fresh is to hook it up to a trickle charger when your machine's not in use. Some batteries are hard to reach in the machine, so it may be beneficial to install a battery terminal relocation kit. You can pick one of those up from SuperATV.com. One thing that doesn't work, that's always a common misconception, is firing the machine up, letting it run for a few minutes, and then shutting it back off. That's not enough time to charge the battery. In order to get the battery charged up, you need to get in the machine, ride it for 10 to 15 minutes, and that will charge the battery up to a sufficient voltage. So next time you go to hop in, it'll fire right up. Second, you always want to make sure that your battery terminals are clean and also the connections are good and tight. If not, if you have a loose connection or the terminals are dirty, you're not going to be making a good connection. So therefore, whenever you're riding the machine, it's not going to charge the battery, and also you may have a time where you go to start the machine and it doesn't do anything at all. So we have a battery here on our bench top today. We're going to show you a few tips and tricks on what you need to do as far as cleaning goes, inspecting the battery, charging the battery, and testing the battery. We have a machine here. After we've shown you on the bench top, we're going to go to the machine and show you how to do this with the battery still mounted in the unit. So this next process, you can absolutely do it in the machine. We have it on the bench top here just to make it easier to show you what you need to do. I have a battery terminal cleaner here. As you can see, it's got some wires down in there. What you want to do is put it on your terminals, spin it around, get it good and clean. Repeat the same step over here. So in some extreme cases, you're gonna have a little bit of battery acid leakage, you're gonna have some buildup, some corrosion on your terminals. In this case, what you would do is take some battery terminal cleaner and just kind of spray it around on the terminals themselves. Let it soak. And obviously while you're doing this, anytime you're messing with a battery, you wanna be sure that you are using the proper PPE. As you can see, I'm wearing gloves and also safety glasses. You do not wanna get any of this on your skin. So we'll let this soak in for a few minutes, then we're gonna wipe it off, and then we're gonna test our battery. So now that we've let it sit for a moment, what we're gonna do is come in, wipe our terminals clean. And just for good measure, I like to run my brush over them one last time. You can never have your terminals too clean. So after our terminals are good and clean, we're gonna go ahead and test our battery to make sure it's even worth charging. Especially if the battery's just been sitting, you haven't been using any accessories or anything like that. So we are going to take our multimeter. We have it set on voltage here. So this is gonna give us a voltage readout. You're gonna take the red or the positive, put it on the positive side of the battery, and then the ground or the black. And then as you can see, we're at 12.48. So this battery is good. This battery would crank a machine right now. Anything 11.8 volts and up will crank most machines. 12 volts is ideal. If you're anywhere below that, you can put it on the battery charger, charge it, let it sit for a couple days and see if it holds its charge. If it doesn't, then that means it's time to go and get an OEM replacement battery or a battery that is a specific fit for your specific machine. So now that we've went over the basics, we're gonna head over to the machine and show you what you need to do if you have a bad battery or just to check the battery out to make sure that it's A-okay. So we have a Maverick X3 in the shop here today. We're gonna show you how to gain access to the battery as well as remove it from the machine. First things first, our harnesses are passing through our seats. So we're gonna have to disconnect our harnesses. Then Then we're gonna have two 13mm bolts on the front of the seat base that we're gonna have to remove. We're gonna have two 18mm nuts underneath the seat cushion. We'll go down through this hole here. Once you remove the nuts, remove the seat from the machine. Just gonna slide our harnesses through our seats. Pick straight up on the seat. Remove it from the machine. So now that we've removed our seat, we can gain access to our battery. First thing you want to do if you go to start your machine, it doesn't start, check and make sure all your connections are tight. I always like to grab a hold of mine, move around on them. As you can see, ours are good and tight. It's always a good idea to come back, take a ratchet, check them, make sure they're good and snug all the way around on both terminals. Ours are good to go, but what we're going to do is we're going to remove them. We're going to show you how to clean the terminals on the machine, then also how to charge the battery. All right, so what we're gonna do for this specific machine, like I said, every machine is gonna be just a little bit different. This one has 10mm screws holding the terminals on. So what we're gonna do is take our 10mm wrench. And you always wanna make sure whenever you're working on the positive side of the battery that you don't arc it out on anything that's metal. Disconnect. Pull our terminal down and out of the way. Go over here to the positive side or the hot side of the battery. Move our hardware. Slide our terminal down and out of the way. That way it doesn't try to make contact back on the battery. Then we can come in here and we can test it. So we're gonna grab our multimeter just as we did prior. Repeat the same process on the battery while it's in the machine. So we have it set on volts just like we did prior. I'm gonna go ahead and touch our terminal. And touch the hot side. As you can see there, we're reading 12.27, 12.28. So we know our battery's good. If your battery wasn't, let's say it was at like 11 volts, I'm gonna show you what you would do. All right, so we have our battery charger here. What we're gonna do is connect our clamps off of our battery charger to our battery before we plug the battery charger in. So we're gonna take the red and connect it to the positive side. And we're gonna take the black and connect that to the ground side. Once we're good and connected, we're gonna plug our battery charger in. And a lot of these battery chargers have multiple settings. So if you wanted to crank the motor, you wanted to fire up right now, a lot of them will have an engine start. What we're gonna do is a 12 volt, 20 amp. We're gonna set it on a timer here. 135 minutes is as long as we can set this one. So we're gonna set it to 135 minutes. We'll let it sit, get the battery good and charged up. Then we'll reconnect our terminals after we've cleaned everything up and our machine will run. So after our battery is good and charged up, we're gonna go ahead and disconnect our battery charger from the machine. Make sure it's unplugged, and we can get our battery charger out of the way at this point. All right, so we're gonna take our battery terminal cleaner here, spray it on our terminals. You see how it turned pink? Pink means there is battery acid present. So we're gonna take our wire brush, clean our contact surface up really well. Let that sit for a moment. So now that it's sat for a moment, I'm gonna go ahead and clean our terminal off, get all of our battery cleaner out of here. And now we're going to reconnect our terminals. We're going to start on the ground. Make sure you get a good tight where it doesn't move. Like that. Reinstall our positive battery terminal cover. All right, so now we have this battery all cleaned up. We've got our terminals reconnected. As far as cleaning battery terminals, it's gonna apply across the board for every machine. On this machine, we ended up using the wire brush. On the battery earlier, it had the round top terminal. We used our battery terminal cleaner. Regardless, it doesn't matter what style battery you have. You just wanna make sure you use a wire brush, get it good and clean. Use the battery terminal spray. That's gonna remove any acid that could cause a bad connection. And then as always, make sure all of your battery terminal connections are always good and tight to where you can't move them. You always wanna make sure that if you have accessories wired up on a side-by-side, you have them on a keyed on source. Or maybe you have your accessories on a relay powered source where they're not constantly drawing from the battery. That's the #1 reason the battery is gonna run down in a side-by-side. Lack of use, and then having accessories wired directly to the battery, something that's always drawing. You know, let's say we had a battery that was, bad and needed removed. This machine's gonna be different than any other machine, but there's always gonna be a battery hold down. In this case, there's two 10mm bolts down here that we would remove, disconnect their battery terminals and remove the battery from the machine and replace it with an exact fit battery. This is gonna apply across the board for any year, make, model machine. We hope this video helped. Be sure to check out SuperATV.com for all your off-road needs. Also, drop a like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.